Well, hello. Pastor Ray Barnett here with you on this Monday afternoon. I don't know what time you're watching it or what day, but today is April the 20th, 2020. We're in just about a month now of our lockdown situation, which has been interesting. You see, I have my nice fall sweater on. It's a beautiful fall day today. The only problem is it's springtime. Last week, up here in upstate New York, we had 3, maybe 4 occasions for snow to be on the ground in the morning. And once, twice, an inch or 2 of snow. Thankfully, it doesn't last long because, again, this is the spring, but a little unusual, sort of like the times we're living in. A little different, a little difficult, a little tough to navigate, tough to negotiate. And that's why I'm here with you. Because of the days we live in, not just this period of quarantine or whatever they call it, or whatever you want to call it. I'm here to talk to you about anxiety and depression. And if this is your first time joining, first time tuning in, I shared with you that this is a kind of an experiment, a pilot program, looking to see what kind of interest I can generate. And we have already finished 5 days, 1 week, last week. So this is the second week. This is Monday. And the topic is God's answers for anxiety and depression. So if you or somebody you know has had issues with, and especially chronic issues with anxiety or depression, mental health issues, this is what I'm bringing to you, God's answers for anxiety, depression, mental health disorders. The channel is Pastor Ray Barnett. If you're watching, you should already know that, right? But I've been asking you to subscribe to the channel and also hit the notification button. What this does for me, well, the notification button will just let you know when I've uploaded the teaching, which I'm now going to compact into 30 to 40 minutes. I don't want to make them too long. First week, hour or so, especially when I told my story of why I came to Christ and what experience I have had with not just anxiety and depression, but in my story, which you can go back and watch if you haven't on this channel, Pastor Ray Barnett, with schizophrenia when I was in my teens, and lasted for 4 years. So anyway, I'm going to be writing a book about that. It's something I've been not only planning but also putting off for a long time. It's as I said last week in one of our broadcasts, this is not a subject. My story is not a subject that I like to talk about. It doesn't remind me of pleasant things. But the reason that I do what I do, and the reason that I'm here today, I'm not getting paid any extra. This is not overtime for me. This is let's say this is my motive is altruistic. My motive is to help you. So if you will subscribe to the channel. First week we didn't do so bad. We had 33 subscribers. When I started I had 1, and I was the only subscriber, was me. So we added 32 subscribers, and that's not bad. The views that we got were acceptable. They were pretty good for just the first week. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I would ask you to do so, because this is how I'm going to know that there's interest in this. Again, I'm not monetized. I'm not backed by anybody other than my church, that I serve. I'm not here to make money. I'm not here to sell anything. I'm here for you. That's it. That's the motive. And if in the course of time, and I'm thinking I'll do this for like a month, if I see the subscribership is picking up, then I'll stick with it. If it's not, that's how I'm going to just test, this experiment with this program to see if, once again, I said this already, if it's worthy of my time to be coming down from my house to the office here and putting in time with you. Now listen to me on this one here. Nothing that I'm saying on these broadcasts comes easy. So, for instance, if you're looking for quick solutions, that's not what I'm offering. I'm offering God's answers for anxiety and depression, and mental health, and it means that you're going to be adopting, could be radical change, depending on who you are. You're going to be adopting lifestyle changes. Means you're going to be changing the way you think primarily. I'm not going to be dealing with too many other issues, though I'll add some in, like exercise and walking and things like that. But the main idea here is that I want to communicate right from the very beginning is that these are God's answers, but they're meant to be lived out day by day for the rest of your life. So it's a lifestyle change. So I'm not offering quick answers. I turn on to YouTube and I'm always hit with how you can get in the high intensity interval training in 4 minutes a day and all of this, and quite frankly it's just a lot of nonsense. If you want to grow muscle mass, that takes time. It takes dedication. If you want to learn to be an accomplished musician on any instrument, that takes time, that takes practice. The best of musicians or singers, they put in a couple hours a day of practice. Andres Segovia, probably the greatest guitarist ever, advocated practicing scales for 2 hours a day. He practiced for 6 hours a day. Well, that's why he was the best, besides being gifted and talented. And my point is that if you want to really conquer something like anxiety, depression, mental health disorders, you're going to have to really treat it more as a business than some type of entertainment. All right? So I'm not offering you really entertainment, I'm offering you answers. Go back, listen to my story if you haven't heard it already. Watch it again if you have. If you want to know that I'm qualified from experience as someone who suffered from it. But I'm also, my first PhD was in biblical studies, not psychology. But my PhD was entitled God's Answers for Anxiety and Depression, the Bible and Mental Health. That was my dissertation. Okay, so let's get right to it. I went over with you on Thursday, Friday of last week the first principle of this program, which I had here in the church years ago, I called it Renewed, but now we have the title God's Answers for Anxiety and Depression. And I was sharing with you a fundamental principle. Is the first thing that we start with is that you can never permit yourself to doubt the love of God, that God loves you. As a matter of fact, that was you can see it on our other channel, the Time for Truth Ministries. There's 2 channels, Pastor Ray Barnett, the Time for Truth Ministries, and you'll see my messages and Bible studies on that channel, Time for Truth Ministries. And then you'll hear it's a personal message to you, and there's only one subject covered here. There'll only be one subject covered here: anxiety, depression, mental health issues. And I shared with you that you can never permit yourself, if you're a lifelong sufferer, chronic depression, anxiety, panic attacks, anxiety attacks, and we go on through a whole long list of diagnoses. You cannot permit yourself to doubt the love of God, that God cares for you, and that He is not only able to heal you, but He's willing. Now this is, again, in my story, what I did for myself. I refused to submit to a diagnosis that was going to make me a lifelong, basically a lifelong invalid. And I didn't do it, and I'm here today. All right. Now, the second thing that I want to bring to you is a simple application of logic. And this was, by the way, my message yesterday in our service here, which is, again, there's no people here, so I'm always speaking to cameras. It's a simple application of logic. And I'll share with you how it works and how anxiety works physiologically, give you the basics of it. And then hopefully it will help you to really minimize, to diminish, assuage, whatever word you want to use, your symptoms, and free you from fear. 2 Timothy 1:7, for God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. 2 Timothy 1:7. So here it is. Very simple, very short, terse statement. Second principle on my list that I made up. I coined these terms. Even though the ideas are borrowed from all kinds of places, these were my terms. If I am safe, I cannot be in danger. Very simple application of logic. We will need an explanation on how the average anxiety, panic attack works, and this will pretty much, on this principle, biblical principle, it'll pretty much narrow itself into that area. Though depression and anxiety, as I've already told you on the other broadcast, anxiety and depression, they really go hand in hand in most cases. One is the major player, anxiety and depression and anxiety, but they're always kind of connected. And well, let me explain to you how, as simply as I can, what is happening in your body when you are having anxiety, which is just another word for fear. Well, it could be one or the other. It could begin here in your thought life, affecting the body. It could begin in the body and affect the brain, but they're connected, that you know. So let's start with the body first. Let's say you've been going along and everything's been okay, and all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, you start feeling very anxious. You start feeling symptoms: sweaty palms, sweaty armpits, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of symptoms, all kinds. Some more severe than others, but we'll just stick with some of the basics. You know, your stomach may be churning. People feel pins and needles going up and down, or things crawling on their skin. Many people, and I was one of them, who experience that a sense of unreality, that you're not living in reality. There's like a dream state. That's a more acute state of anxiety, panic. But I lived through it, so I know what I'm speaking about from experience. And so we have all these different symptoms. I would actually encourage you to look into a dictionary and just look at the different symptoms that anxiety can produce. And they are pretty extensive. And by the way, they're finding a huge connection over the last couple of decades. Medical science is finding a big connection between the brain and how it controls the organs. I mean, the heart's a muscle, technically a cardiac muscle, but they have discovered now that the heart, the gut, muscles, you know, in the gym there's always been this expression forever, muscle memory, which I always thought was kind of, you know, didn't make sense. I mean, the brain remembers, the muscles don't remember. But I had something to learn as I continued to research and look, and these men and women in the laboratories of some of these great universities working on this have discovered neurons that belong specifically to the heart, to the gut, to the muscles, and so on throughout the body, and they call them little brains that they think, so the main central manager here, your brain, the brain in the skull, is actually communicating with another brain, little patches of neurons, and they're communicating. And you can find this in many books written more modern books, you could find it, that they're now saying that we have more control over our body than previously thought. This is good news. I mean, it's good news not just for anxiety and depression. It's good news if you have heart disease, cancer, things like that. But you go read the books and you do your own research on that. I'll just give you again the basics and stay on topic. And so, let's say it's the body first. It's coming from the body to the brain, and so here's the thing: the brain. It's always registering the brain as some type of danger. But what you need to understand, this is very fundamental. However scary, I mean, I've known these things for decades, and find myself in a situation where I'm feeling panicky. Could be for any reason. I'm not by nature, by the way, a nervous person, but I've always had a sensitive nervous system. Probably the same problem that you have. And something I was born with. It's not a bad thing if you just keep it under control, but boy, if it gets out of control, it's a big time problem. And so you have this, the body, let's say, registering to the brain, and it's saying there's danger, there's danger. The brain, if it accepts that, and we could say the mind as well. I won't go through the explanation of the difference between the brain and the psyche, or the soul, mind. But if the brain accepts the signal as being one of true danger, it agrees, in a matter of speaking, it agrees with this sensory perception in the body and makes it worse. What you have here, these large, well, not just the large one, all through your body, these skeletal muscles, when they get tense, they put a lot of pressure, or they put pressure on the nervous system. Once that begins to happen, the nervous system is not acting, it's not in balance anymore. If the tension persists over days, weeks, months, or maybe years, boom, all of a sudden, the nervous system can't handle the load anymore. You get this intense feeling, perhaps. I'm saying perhaps yours were intense. There's different degrees of intensity. And all of a sudden you're wondering, why am I so afraid? And what's going on? And now the heart's palpitating. And again, the stomach is squeezing. And you're getting short of breath. You think you're having a heart attack. And by the way, if you're having symptoms, always make sure you're checking with a doctor. Because sometimes there are true, physiological conditions going on in your body that is signaling this way. But if you've been already checked out and they're saying the heart's fine, the lungs are fine, your stomach is good, all that, and you've been checked out, then you want to start to look at anxiety and panic as the culprit. And that's what we're dealing with here. So if that's the case, you've been assured that you're a fairly healthy person, start to look at the fact that the brain is receiving a signal that's saying danger. Dr. Abraham Lowe, the founder of Recovery, whom I gleaned a lot of great information from over the years. He passed away back in the 50s, but he was on to something, and I've read his book I don't know how many times over the years because of his great insights into anxiety, panic, and so on, which wasn't as well understood in his day as it is today. But he called it the symptomatic idiom. Danger is the symptomatic idiom. A one-word idiom. Danger. 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 So when we look at anxiety attacks, the brain is receiving a message from the body. Or it could be vice versa. You've been worrying. Now the body's getting more and more tense. There's more and more pressure put on the nervous system. Okay, you can begin here, reach here. You can begin here, reach here. I guess it doesn't matter where the fire started. Once it begins, you're suffering from panic, anxiety, and so on. What we want to do is put the fire out. Here's where I shared with you at the beginning of this broadcast. Here's where there's no real quick answers. Again, if you're looking for a quick answer, you're gonna be looking for a long time, because this is very tricky. However, the treatment is very simple. And that is that you do not believe that you're in danger. Let me give you an example of something I went through about, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. In 2008, I had open heart surgery. I came through it fine because I was always exercising, working out. My diet was really pretty good. It's even better now, but it was really pretty good at the time. I wasn't the person that you would think. I wasn't the person I didn't think I should. And all of a sudden, because of my family history, heart disease is very, very high. In fact, it's 100% on my father's side, and it goes on my mother's side too. One day I'm on the operating table, and I was very taken back by that. But anyway, a couple of years later, I started getting these intense palpitations, and they were really intense, and they were frightening. So back to the cardiologist, back to an electrophysiologist, getting checked out. I was concerned about this because I'm thinking something wrong with my heart. Well, anyway, long story made short, it turns out that in certain cases, certain people that have had bypass surgery, I'm one of them, they develop these PVCs, premature ventricular contractions. Don't worry about the definition. If you're interested, look it up, the anatomy of the heart. But I was getting them and they were like explosions. And going through a series of tests, everything was checking out really, really well. Heart was looking really, really well. So then it clicked in my head. You know what this is? This is a nervous symptom. And I got to caution you again, if you're having atrial fibrillation, rapid heartbeat, you got to get checked out by a cardiologist. If you're having PVCs, you got to get checked out by a cardiologist. Make sure your heart's okay. But if you've been checked out as I was, after already having surgery, and I was getting good reports because I had experience in this, I said, okay, this is the nervous system. It's getting overloaded for some reason. This is how my heart is reacting to the vagus nerve. Boom, it's exploding. Or felt like it was exploding. So I started to just brush it off. Doctor said, don't be concerned about it. The electrophysiologist, who is a cardiologist, said, don't worry about it. And so I said, okay, I won't. And when I did get the symptoms, because they did not go away, this is what I was trying to convey to you. They didn't go away immediately just because, oh, there's no danger. You're not in danger. They kept coming back. And every time they came back, what I did, and this takes a lot of discipline now, I didn't pay attention to it. There it was, boop, momentary scare, then I keep on working out in the gym or reading the Bible, prayer, whatever. I just stopped paying attention to it, and guess what? That went away. Completely went away. Because it was the same principle. My heart was contracting prematurely on in the left ventricle. It was sending a signal to my brain, and a big time signal. There's something wrong. When I had been checked out by competent medical personnel, 2 doctors, and I was assured that no, there's nothing wrong there. It's looking pretty good. Then I knew what to do. Treat it as a nervous symptom. The more I conveyed back down to the heart that there is no danger, relax, it went away. I was going back. So, the body is an amazing, I'll call it a machine that God created. But it also becomes a fearful master if you're not in control. So that's what we're trying to gain here. We're trying to gain control over these anxiety attacks, these panic attacks, and so on. Or just general anxiety, just being nervous all the time, which I just told you, that's not me. I'm not by nature a nervous person. I just have a very sensitive nervous system. So it reacts to stress. If it's prolonged, it reacts sometimes in very unpleasant ways. Okay, so just by putting my knowledge to work for myself gave me the assurance and the deliverance from premature ventricular contractions. Again, look up at the symptoms of anxiety and the physiology of them, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Some of them you wouldn't believe. all kinds of things, neck pain. I mean, here's the interesting thing. You say to somebody said this to me, because I love to tease, in my personal life. And it's a way of endearment for me, for people who I'm very friendly with and people I love. And somebody said to me, yeah, you have pain in the neck. And we use expressions like that, or this one too. You make me sick to my stomach. That actually have a lot of profound implications. Stress will go right to your neck. It's one of the first places it goes. You start rubbing your neck. My neck often gets tight from not only from stress, but I'm always reading a lot, so it's in one position, locked into one position. I get other symptoms too. I just learned how to deal with them. Or I've developed some stomach issues as I get older. Nothing serious, nothing really bad, but again, I have to reduce my stress. If it's physical, and if my stomach was bothering me, I did get it checked out. Same thing I'm telling you, I've had it checked out. Pretty much past, with flying colors, it's probably a little of this or that. Okay, back to square one again. Treat it as a nervous symptom, which is what I've been doing. So, with a kind of a basic, sketchy knowledge of the physiology of the body, it's just a wonderful machine that God created. When the body is out of control, central management has got to take control. And you got to assure yourself that if you're safe, then this danger is not real. It's imaginary. The symptoms are not imaginary, by the way. Many times nervous patients go through all types of lengths to convince, maybe a doctor, convince their family, their spouse, that they're actually really suffering. And the family members aren't convinced because they see a robust voice and healthy cheeks or color or whatever. But I know if you're going through these things with a physiological symptom, I know that these symptoms are real. So I'm not saying, and no one who's competent on the subject is going to say that the symptoms aren't real. They are real. And they're very disconcerting. And they can be a bit painful too, depending on what your symptom is. But central management has got to take over, and it has got to get the body to relax. And chiefly, that's done by communicating back down to the body that you are not in any danger. Okay, for the Christian, or if you're watching today and you're not yet dedicated to the Lord, this is what freed me up. And without this, by the way, without the Bible, I don't know that I'd still be free today, but I am free. Not because I understand the dynamics of anxiety as much as I know Christ. So let me give you this famous verse from probably the most celebrated passage of Scripture that everybody has heard one time, and very comforting, by the way, the 23rd Psalm. Now listen to what I'm going to read it to you here, right? From the 4th verse, 23:4, Psalm 23:4. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Here we have the Bible, and many, many hundreds of statements similar to this one, saying that it's not that you don't have symptoms, it's not that you're not in a real trial right now, it's not that you're not actually under stress and having troubles and so on. It's just that as you're walking through them, you will not permit your mind to fear because Christ is with you. I shared in the message yesterday, and I'll say it to you now in case you didn't see it, that there's a great advantage for someone like myself being a pastor because and knowing this subject, because I can go into areas that most counselors, secular counselors, can't touch because they're not coming to you, or you're not going to them as someone whose expertise is in the Bible. And so I can deal with subjects where other counselors couldn't. I've had many people here in my office over the years who had been seeing counselors or were at the moment seeing counselors that didn't know the Lord. And so the questions that were on their mind that still troubled them and kept them in a state of tension, which was keeping the anxiety going, were not answered. See, I can answer them. If you're already a believer in Christ, I can say to you, you're safe. Yesterday in the message, I went over what does the word saved mean. You know, we maybe you have met or heard preacher, met a Christian, and they talk about, well, I'm saved. And I shared with you in Greek, in the Greek New Testament, the word saved is from a primary word, seas, and it's translated as sozo, and it means safe. Jesus came to save us. He came to make us safe. First and most importantly, he came to make us safe from eternal destruction and eternal judgment and messianic judgment and the judgment to come. We are now saved. But the synonym, and there's a few of them, saved, sozo in Greek, means to be safe. It means to be healed. It means to be delivered. It even means prosperity, but not the way these preachers today are on television with their fancy watches and cars and huge homes and Lear jets. That's not what it means. Don't be fooled by that. If you're looking for material things, you're going to still be suffering on the inside. So forget all that stuff. God will take care of you. He will supply your needs. Philippians 4:19. But what we are looking for is deliverance from the symptoms, and then you know real freedom. I'm so grateful to Christ for what he's done in my life. So now with a basic knowledge, very simplistic explanation of the physiology of the mind and the brain-body connection, even the mind, I'm separating the two, but I'm not explaining it at the moment. That's why I told you, you know, with these teachings, you're not going to get but so much. It's like a big meal, and we're just dealing with it one little slice at a time. You will be most benefited by hitting that notification button and subscribing to the channel, so that when one is uploaded, take the time to listen. I'm trying to compact these messages into 30 to 40 minutes. Today will probably be closer to 40 minutes. Probably the average time, or about the average time that you would have in a college class. But if you're really interested in being free from anxiety and depression and mental health disorders, then you're going to want to invest the time to listen to these messages, or these little teachings. I'm doing them for you. Okay, so we have a little working knowledge. This statement was attributed to Albert Einstein. If you can't state it simply, it's because it's not well understood. Something to that effect. In other words, if a teacher can't say in terms that you understand it, it's probably because he or she doesn't understand the subject too well themselves. Abraham Lincoln had a similar expression. He said everything had like what he called a nub. If you rub it long enough, there's something central to that makes this thing either a problem or an answer, whatever. And what I'm saying to you is that I'm giving you